LMCS was presenting a dive procedure at the time to insert a diver into a 30-inch pipeline at berth number 6 to remove the scuba cylinder, which was preventing the camera from going any further. A document was placed on the screen, and LMCS was reading the proposed procedure. The questions which were discussed included how the diver could be introduced into the pipeline, what equipment would have been part of the safety parameters, and physically, how was the diver going to perform the operation with the equipment on. Mr. Seale's view was that the procedure did not demonstrate how the steps would be safely executed, but only stated what steps were proposed to be done. In his consideration, the proposed plan did not contain this information, which was necessary to assess whether it could be safely executed. He also noted that the exercise was not to rescue the divers, but to remove objects in the line. The risk of the exercise had to be weighed carefully against its objective. Discussion was held surrounding the presented diving procedure and its lack of detail and inadequacies of control to safeguard the proposed diver. Due to the fact that it was ultimately not his decision to make, Mr. Seale stated that he volunteered no further input to the discussions, and his opinion was not solicited. Mr. Seales did not review the documents, and the documents were not forwarded to him. The meeting concluded with LMCS and PARIA's team exploring other options to safely recover the missing divers. Mr. Seales had no further involvement in the matter. Mr. Seales, is this an accurate summary of your evidence?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Seales, now Mr. Maharaj has got some questions for you, all right? And then, as I say, there'll be others. Mr. Maharaj.
Much obliged, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Seales.
Good morning.
You are a very experienced diver. Am I correct? Over 25 years experience.
Yes.
And could you explain to us when you say that I'm certified as an unrestricted surface supply diver? What is that? Could you explain what is that?
No, that's just the classification of the diver.
Sorry?
You're going to have to move, bring the whole thing towards you, that's it. And if you don't mind, just lean a little forward when you speak. Thank you.
Right, that's the classification of the diver. So there are different levels. Unrestricted is a level under the Canadian standard.
But to help us, the classification is a high classification.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And according to your statement, I'm interested in the timeline, right? So if you could try and help us. You first became involved in this matter, according to paragraph 5 of your statement, at 4:57 p.m. on the 25th of February.
Yes.
And that you said in that paragraph 5 that you were requested by Mr. Fortune Mr. Fortune is at Heritage?
Yes, he is.
Requested that you mobilize Mitchell's Professional Diving Services Limited to report and provide support if required to PARIA, correct?
Yes.
And that you were told to do this because an incident occurred earlier that day at berth 6.
Yes.
Were you told at that time what the incident was?
No.
No. So, based on the instructions you got, you contacted Mitchell's?
Yes, I did. So I tried to gather more information to help inform what equipment would be required, but there was no information available at that time.
But you contacted Mitchell at around 5:05 p.m.?
Yes.
You spoke to one Mr. Fitzroy King?
Yes, I did.
Right. And then you received information from Mr. Fitzroy King at around 5:23 p.m. that Mitchell's would be able to provide its services, and they were actually engaged by Heritage.
Yes.
Right. Then at about 6 p.m., you arrived at Heritage Marine.
Yes.
And then you received a call from Mr. Fortune, who identified Mr. Fleming, and what that call was for, or that call you got from Mr. Fortune.
No, well, he just informed me of the contact persons.
Sorry?
He informed me of the contact persons.
The contact
PARIA.
person.
So who RBA contacted when I arrived at PARIA?
Right. And who was that contact person?
Mr. O.C. Fleming.
Fleming. And he was associated with which company?
Heritage.
Heritage. And you were asked to contact OTSL?
No.
No.
So I did not contact or engage OTSL.
Who
Right,
contacted OTSL?
I'm unaware.
You're not aware. But at about 6:30 p.m., you departed Heritage Marine, and where did you go to, if I may ask, after 6:30 p.m.?
PARIA.
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 And you arrived at PARIA at 8:20 p.m.
Yes, Nikaba.
And you went to PARIA administrative building?
Well, not immediately.
Not immediately. But how long after?
No, so within that period, 8:20 and 9 o'clock.
Around 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And you made contact with Mr. Rupert Paul of OTSL?
All right, so I would have made those calls when I arrived at the location, which is PARIA, just to ascertain where they were at that time.
And then, according to my working it out, at around 8:40 p.m., you were contacted by Mr. Fitzroy King of Mitchell,
Yes.
who informed you that the crew had arrived at PARIA's car park and was standing by for instructions.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
And that was the crew from Mitchell.
Yes.
And then at around 9 p.m., you located Mr. Fleming in an office downstairs of PARIA.
Yes.
And then you were given an update of the incident as to what happened that day.
Yes.
At around what time that was given to you?
That will be around 9 o'clock. So when I met Mr. Holder, Mr. Yewood was in the office, so they would have just given a brief overview of what had, or the information that was available at that time to them.
Was that the first time that you learned that someone had emerged from the pipe?
Yes.
So no one had told you that up until 9 o'clock that night?
No.
And you are an experienced diver for 25 years and no one told you that?
No.
And at when you arrived at PARIA and you were given this briefing, you responded immediately to the briefing, and you said words to the effect that it would have been, it may have, you said that the divers may have experienced a Delta P scenario.
Yes, based on the explanation given.
And then even after you got the briefing, you remained at PARIA.
Yes.
And you were in contact with Osai Fleming, Holder, at PARIA while you were there?
Yes.
And they were on standby also?
Yes. Well, sorry, I can't say what role or function he was performing at that time.
Well, according to paragraph 18 of your witness statement, you said at around 21:30 hours, I proceeded upstairs to the company of Osai Fleming Holder to an unoccupied office of PARIA's terminal building to stand by for... Oh, sir, you were asked to stand by for requests, I'm sorry, from PARIA. And who gave you those instructions?
No, it was not an instruction.
But who informed you of that, to stand by?
Well, as I said, it was not an instruction. So we proceeded upstairs, right, and stood by.
And stood by,
Basically,
okay, okay. Then during the...
Sorry, just pausing there, it's a follow. So it's about 9:30 in the evening now.
Yes.
Right? You've been given some sort of a briefing as to what had happened.
Yes.
Were you told the time when this first happened? The time of the first noticed that there had been an incident?
An incident?
Yes. It's not a memory test, so let me see if I can help you. It was about 2:45 that we know it happened, there or thereabouts, between 2:30 and 2:34, some say 2:50. It's in that period, all right?
So,
were you told that this event, which you were being consulted upon, had happened as long ago as 2:45 that day?
I believe so.
Right. And you've already told me, in answer to the question, that you only learnt that a man had emerged from the pipe at about 9 o'clock.
Yes.
Were you told then when he emerged?
No.
Did you ask them, well, when did this chap come out of the pipe?
No, the conversation and whatever.
Didn't? I mean, we know that it was more than 3 hours between the time when he did emerge from the pipe and you telling us you were informed that a man had come out of the pipe. Now, being a diver of some 25 years' experience, it does not behove me to say to you that time is of the essence.
Yes, it is.
Isn't it? Yes. There are 4 men in a pipe who may be alive. Were you told that?
No, there weren't conversations surrounding the other divers and where they were.
There were no conversations to be said. So when you were informed that a man had emerged from the pipe when you were told that at 9 o'clock, but not told when, you had no idea when it was that he had emerged from the pipe. You were not told as to the fact that it was known when he emerged from the pipe that there were still people in the pipe alive.
Okay. So
were you?
At that time, I'm unaware if it was actually confirmed that the men were in the pipeline.
So when you were being told this at 9 o'clock, no confirmation that these men were in the pipe?
Not that I'm aware of.
Or that they were alive in the pipe?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
I mean, for you to be able to assist PARIA and or Heritage in this tragedy as a diving expert in your own right, would you not think those were the basic facts you would need to know?
Yes.
And they didn't tell you. And you just stood by. I don't mean that offensively.
Yeah.
You were stood by because nobody was asking you to do anything.
Yes. Now, can I expand?
Of course you can, yes.
No, remember I would have entered into an active emergency...
Sorry, speak a little louder, sorry.
Yes, remember I would have entered into an active emergency response system. So, PARIA would have had their incident command team.
Yes.
And
were you part of that?
No.
Were you ever invited in?
No, I would not say that.
Right, so you were never invited in to actually address them, even if you were not part of the incident command team yourself, but to explain to them that night what you considered the position to be. You were never asked?
No.
Right.
So I didn't consider that my role.
When you did hear such facts as you heard, you immediately thought to yourself, this sounds like Delta P.
Yes, the initial explanation.
And you communicated that to them, did you?
Yes.
To who was it that you communicated that, please?
Well, it would have been on 2 occasions.
The first occasion?
Yes, that would have been to Mr. Fleming and Mr. Yearwood.
Fleming and Yearwood.
Right.
Did they appear to understand what you were talking about?
I can't say.
Well-
I would have taken it for granted because when I explained initially, I didn't go in to explain anything at that point in time. So it was just a response to an explanation given.
No, but you understand what I'm saying. Did they appear to understand what you were explaining to them? You see, if somebody had said to me 6 months ago, what is delta P? I might have stabbed a guess at it, but probably didn't know.
Yeah.
If somebody had said that, I suspect that most of the people watching this or sitting in this room 6 months ago
Yes.
might not have understood what delta P was. Do you follow?
Yes, I
So
understand.
when you were explaining, well, this sounds like delta P, did they seem to follow what you were saying? Or did you have to explain what delta P was?
No, at that time, at the first instant, no. When I went upstairs, I explained it a little more and didn't take it for granted.
You didn't take it for granted and you explained it to them.
A little more, yeah.
Right, and
What,
so
of what may have occurred.
Right, what may have... Well,
Yes.
obviously, from your point of view, it was
Yeah.
only your best guess.
Yes.
But your best guess, if I may say so, with 25 years' experience, is rather better than somebody who's not dived ever in their lives. Yes? Yeah, right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Maharaj.
Much obliged, Mr. Chairman. And just to continue, you stayed at PARIA for Friday night
Yes.
until Saturday morning.
Yes.
And during that period of time, PARIA did not request you to assist with actually diving services.
The first request would have come at Saturday morning.
Around what time?
So this would be at the briefing after 12 midnight. So this between 12 and 1 o'clock.
Mr. Sees, we have had evidence before this commission that Mr. Budram came out of the pipe, that is one of the divers, came out of the pipe at around 5:30, 5:45 p.m. on the Friday night. Okay? So bear that in mind. I want to ask you your view on that. And he said that 4 other divers were in the pipeline. Now, you knew that this was a 30-inch diameter pipeline.
Yes.
Right. If a rescue had to be done to take those men out of the pipeline, if a rescue had to be done, would you agree with me that a rescue had to be done urgently if the men were to come out alive?
Yes.
In your view, in your opinion, you have a vast experience from what I'm reading here. Very distinguished experience. And you had to advise what timeline there was for a rescue to take place. What timeline would you have given? Approximate what timeline?
My timeline would be within the first 5 hours of the incident.
Within the
First 5 hours of the incident occurring.
first 5 hours of the incident occurring.
Did anyone ever ask you your opinion for a timeline as to affecting a rescue?
No.
So what you've just told us now, just this minute, 5 hours or so, was never asked of you, either by any of the people who were engaging you or the IMT.
No.
Had they asked you, would you have told them what you've told us?
Well, I would have asked for more information first.
Well, I dare say you would have, because you weren't being given very much from what you said. But can I understand, hither, doing your best now, if you'd been asked, that is the sort of timeline. You now know what the facts are. So would that have been your timeline, the same as what you just told Mr. Maharaj?
Yes. And that will be on the outer limits.
That would have been the outer limit.
Yes.
Right. So just to take that as a sort of scale, imagine you had a whiteboard and you divided that whiteboard into 5 separate sections, hour 1, hour 2, hour 3, hour 4, hour 5, yes? Beyond hour 5, they're not going to be around, are they? They're not alive anyway, or pretty unlikely. That would be your view.
Unlikely.
Yeah. So, if you've got this 5-hour window at the outside, as you put it, you'd look to see what can be done in the first hour, because that's their best chance, isn't it?
Yes.
Then you'd look to see what in the second hour, and so on, by way of a scale, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Right. You now know, I anticipate, if you didn't then, but now know, that the incident itself happened at about 2:30-ish, 2:45, if I want to say, between 2:30 and 2:45. Let's call it 2:45. And we know that Mr. Boudram came out of the pipe about 3 hours later, perhaps 5:30, maybe a little bit less than 3 hours later.
Yes.
So 2.5 hours as a minimum had already been used up, as it were. Not, in fairness to everybody, nobody had appreciated that they were necessarily sucked into the pipe. And you weren't consulted until pretty late on in the day. But be that as it may, about 2.5 hours already passed. So half of your time has already been used, hasn't it?
Yes.
Renewed hope, I imagine, for those who were seriously interested in rescuing these men when Mr. Boudram comes out of the pipe. Because he's alive.
Yes.
And he's made his own way out, hasn't he?
Yes.
So renewed hope, as I put it, that the remainder of the men in the pipe might be rescued still, even 2.5 hours after the initial incident, do you see?
Okay. But what will be taken into consideration is that he would have been using the resources within that period also.
Clearly, which may shorten your 5-hour timeline, isn't it, rather than extending it. Were you made aware of whether or not there were any air pockets in this pipeline?
At that time, no.
You subsequently heard that, presumably, yeah. All right. But in any event, your outer limit pipeline is 5 hours. 2.5 hours were before Mr. Boudram comes out, half the time used up, and as you now know, he had used some of the air that was available to them, to those men, which left you with a 2.5 hour window, at best. Correct?
Yes.
Tell me this, in assessing the risk to you and or any other diver in going into that pipe to rescue those men, is the timeline a critical factor?
Timeline is a factor, yes, for the personnel, but effecting a rescue, you have to consider the risk to the rescuer.
No, I follow that, but as you told us, I think, certainly in the summary, one of the factors you were considering is later on when you were looking at going into you were being asked about entry into the pipe to remove a bottle,
yes,
an air bottle. That is a factor, isn't it?
Yes.
Am I really going to risk a man to move an air bottle? It must be the question that you ask yourself, mustn't it?
Yes.
That is different. If you'd known, for example, there was a man there, alive, where that bottle was, you might say, well, it is worth risking a man to save that man, but to save a bottle or to move the bottle out the way, it's a different dynamic, isn't it? Yes? All right. So, really, I suppose what I'm asking you is this, is that as more time passes, so the value in risking someone's life to go and to effect a rescue diminishes, doesn't it?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mara.
Much obliged.
I think Mr. Wilson has a question.
Morning, Mr. Seals.
Morning.
Just listening to you there, I would like to have your opinion and I guess get a little more clarification. You're basing the 5 hours in and around of probable survival based on you knew a diver came out. Yeah, that somebody survived and came out. But with your knowledge of delta P, and that's why I need it clear, with that violent event, are you able to put a timeline of survivability once you were made aware of initial incident, men go into the pipeline, your training and your knowledge indicates delta P.
Yeah.
Your first thoughts about that, men going into a pipeline after suffering delta P, you would still apply a survivability window with a...
No.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Well, when you say no, you mean long.
Shorter.
So having identified delta P, that 5-hour window may even be less.
Yes. And the emergence of Mr. Budram. So the
Yes.
fact that you could have applied survivability was Mr. Budram supposedly coming out of the pipe.
Right. So you got Mr. Thank you. So you got Mr. Budram coming out of the pipe. Did you know that he had told those who rescued him from the pipe that that the others were in the pipe and alive?
No. At that time of, until later on that night, into the wee hours of...
Into the wee hours of Saturday morning.
Yeah, that's when I would have...
That's when you first knew that. When did you first know that that he had said there were air pockets in the pipe?
Would have been around that same time.
Same time. So you didn't discover that until the early hours of Saturday morning?
Well, yes, late Saturday night into late Friday night into Saturday morning.
Late Friday night into
Yes.
Saturday. So well past your window.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Maharaj.
So it may have been implied, but on the Saturday morning, or during the Saturday morning period, or during Saturday, was the first time you were asked your advice and sought help in respect of the men in the pipe?
Yes.
Is there a time on that, Mr. Maharaj?
Around what time was that on Saturday morning?
This is approximately 12:15.
12:15.
Approximately.
And at that time, that would have been way past what you have just told us, having known the facts, that timeline of about 5 hours.
Yes.
I just want to ask you one more question, which I would like to, I think might help us. You said in paragraph 1, you are the client representative and diving operations supervisor of Heritage, correct?
Yes.
What those functions entail at Heritage?
Basically, I coordinate and supervise all diving operations and ensure compliance to HPCL's requirements and industry best practice. I have other non-diving specific functions also and administrative duties.
If I may ask you this, if you were the client representative of PARIA, would you have the same kind of functions?
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No further questions.
Who else would like to ask Mr. Seals any questions? Right, Miss Alfonso, please, first. Please introduce yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Seals. My name is Nairi Alfonso. I represent the interests of the SWWTU.
Morning.
I just have a few questions to ask you. Are you yourself, Mr. Seals, a dive supervisor?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Are you still an active diver?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Right. As part of your commercial diving experience, and I agree with my learned senior, very impressive credentials, you would have received training with respect to the part of your course would have been the rescue of divers?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And also diving into confined spaces?
Not specifically, no.
Not specifically, but rescue?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Speaking of which, you would have said that you're the client representative at Heritage.
Yes, I am.
Are you in charge of or part of a diving department or unit or any of those things, or is it just you yourself?
No, it's just me.
Oh, I see. But in Petrotrin, you were part of a division, unit,
Yes, a department. A diving department.
I see. So with the closure of Petrotrin, that department, I guess, went the same way as Petrotrin?
Yes.
I see. Now, you've said in your witness statement you were only in communication with OTSL and Mitchell's professional diving service, yes?
Yes.
Okay, and specifically you were in contact with the two diving supervisors?
Yes, I was.
Of each of the companies. Mr. On the Gulf Stream Eagle was, is it Mr. Paul?
Yes, it was.
Right, and from MPDS, it was Mr. King?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So, what I see from your witness statement is by 8:20, you've communicated with OTSL, and they tell you, we're already on site.
Yes.
Right? And they were in the Gulf Stream Eagle, a diving vessel, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, did they tell you, Mr. Seals, that they were on standby, waiting for instructions?
Yes.
Okay. Did Mr. King tell you something similar?
Yes.
And that shortly thereafter? He would have told you the same thing. We started at 8:20.
That would have been approximately 8:40.
Okay, thank you. So 20 minutes late. Sorry, 20 minutes later. Now, we already know from the information you just gave, you got very late and limited information with regard to Mr. Budram emerging from the pipe, and the timing in which he came out of the pipe. Did you pass that information on to Mr. King or Mr. Paul?
No, not immediately.
Okay. Did you pass it on at all?
No, the conversation I would have had with Mr. Paul and Mr. King would have been after the request was made for our support.
Okay, sorry, I don't think I followed you there.
Right.
So you do speak to Mr. King and Mr. Paul, one at 8:10, one at 8:20, and one at 8:40.
Yes.
Okay. By that time, by your evidence this morning, you did not know that Mr. Budram had come out of the pipe, because if I followed it about 9 o'clock.
Right. So at this time, there was no communication of the details surrounding the incident to Mr. King or Mr. Paul.
Okay, that I understand. So subsequently, when I can't ask you to, nobody could ask you to relay information before you get it.
Yes.
So when you did get the information, which I believe is around 9 o'clock that night, that Friday night, did you communicate that to the two dive supervisors?
No, I can't recall we had that conversation.
So as far as you know, they remained on standby, whether on land or on a vessel?
Yes.
Okay. You yourself, Mr. Seals, using that terminology, standby, indicate from about 11:30 you are also on standby.
Yes.
Awaiting instructions. To be fair, from your witness statement,
yes,
you're awaiting instructions from somebody from PARIA.
Yes.
Right? Did you ever receive such instructions? You say you're waiting for instructions, so you're a diver.
Yes.
So I assume you're waiting for instructions with respect to diving.
Yes. So the request came at approximately after 12:15.
Okay, so the first request you get, you reach where the building where the incident command team is, you reach at 6:30. Yes? Around 6:30 you reached?
No? 9:30.
Oh, yes, I beg your
9:30.
pardon. You departed Heritage premises at 6:30. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. And you say yes. I hate 24-hour time. So it's at 8:20 you reach the PARIA's administrative building, you see.
Yes.
So the first request, and you go up to this office, this vacant office, you say, and you await instructions.
Yes.
And the first time that somebody makes a request of you, forget instructions, the first time somebody makes a request of you is after midnight.
Yes.
During the course of the night, Mr. Seals, would you have reached out to somebody called Dr. Glenn Chetty? Hope I'm getting his last name right.
I may have, I can't recall.
Okay. Is he one of the people you reached out to for remote camera, an ROV?
No, it may have been an unofficial request.
Sorry?
It may have been an unofficial request. So over here in conversations, I may have called him to ask him if he knows of an available ROV.
Okay. And you may have done so because you know him to have that kind of equipment?
Yes.
Okay. So you do recall speaking to Dr. Glenn
Yes.
Chetty? Okay. Did Mr. Chetty give you any suggestions? You would have told him what transpired, of course.
Yes.
You're not asking...
Well, a vague request.
Okay, you must have told him, look, I want this because I think some men are down in a pipe or something like that.
No, well, actually, he was aware of
Oh, he was aware.
an incident.
He was aware of an incident.
Yes.
Did Dr. Chetty volunteer? He's a diver himself, yes?
Yes.
He's an instructor?
Yes, he is.
Right. And a supervisor as well?
Yes.
Okay, so he's a dive instructor. Did he volunteer any information, Mr. Seals, with regard to, because he knew of the incident?
No.
He didn't volunteer any
No.
methodology, approach,
No.
suggestion?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you for that. In this conversation, you referred to on Saturday, in the wee hours of Saturday, Mr. Seals, in PARIA's Incident Command Center. You were the only diver present?
Yes.
Okay.
That I'm aware of.
And Mr. Seals, why is it if you're the... Okay, so questions were being posed. A proposal was being put out there in here. Paragraph 24 of your witness statement. Yeah, you're right. If you could probably look at that.
Yes.
So Mr. Piper was asking you something about could you send your divers to do something?
Yes.
To remove the tanks, right?
Yes.
Now, you just said you are the only diver in Heritage, so this is either Mitchell's Diving or OTSL. When it says my divers, who did you think that was?
Well, again, it had to be probably the resources available.
Oh, okay, but the only resources that you were in
Mitchell's
communication with
yes,
was OTSL
and Mitchell's.
and Mitchell's. Okay. And then you pose a number of questions.
Yes.
You don't volunteer information or volunteer methodology based on your considerable experience.
No.
So you're the only diver there, and you ask Mr. Piper, how is this going to be done? How is the diver going to be introduced into the tank? Whether he will have this kind of equipment or that kind of equipment.
Yes.
Okay.
No, but this is not for Mr. Piper per se.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of these are considerations when you are planning the activity.
Okay, so you were posing these questions so
Just to have
that...
an appreciation
Okay.
for what the activity entails or
Okay.
will entail.
Okay. As the only diver present, Mr. Seals, you didn't think that you the person put forward a plan?
No.
No.
At that time, no, because it was a request for assistance. I had no divers available to me in terms of under my direct command. We have dive supervisors who have their dive team. So what I would have done is gather as much information that I could have to communicate to them, to form an intervention, if required.
Okay. But did you do that, using your own words, did you do what you just said?
Yes, so
You gathered information.
Yes, so the questions that I would have asked, which one of them would have been, how high is the riser above the deck? So earlier, the question would have been, well, they would have said that the riser was 10 feet from the sea surface.
8 to 10 feet, you say in your witness
Right, but that
statement.
wasn't, so the question I asked was to, again, gather information and have an appreciation for the site itself. And that 8 to 10 feet, the question I asked was above the deck of the structure. So it wasn't from the splash zone or the sea level. It would have been from the deck. So you would have had an additional interface from the deck now to the sea surface. So in addition to the 8 to 10 feet, you would also have an additional distance from the deck to the sea surface.
Okay. I understand,
Right.
I understand why you're asking the questions.
Yeah. So this is information now that I would have gathered too. So when I'm communicating to OTSL and Mitchell, I can inform them of site-specific information.
Okay. So my question was, did you relay this information that you solicited or elicited
Yes.
from these questions
Yes.
that you posed to members of the ICT team,
Yes.
one presumes, yes?
Yes.
So you relayed that information, that's after midnight.
Yes, and we have also conducted a site visit.
I see. Who is we, Mr. Seals?
OTSL and Mitchell's.
I see. Thank you very much, Mr. Seals. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Ramadhan, we missed you yesterday.
Well, after Mr. Peterson indicated that nobody liked me, I'm delighted to hear that. I said that after Mr. Peterson indicated that no one liked me, I'm delighted to hear that I was missed yesterday. Thank you so much for that.
He's misrepresenting the facts.
I'm so grateful for that. Thank you so much. And it's good to be back before you, sir. Good morning, Mr. Seals.
Good morning.
First of all, let me thank you for the efforts that you would have made of your personal time and energies to do what you could to assist. Yes?
Thanks.
Now, to be fair, you were there in a capacity as a resource to PARIA and a resource for rescue or whatever else would have been required.
Yes.
Yes. Tell all of us, please. For a decision to be taken, what is the most important thing you would require? Not information?
Yes.
Yes. And you had a wealth of experience as a diver, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. No trick questions here, so relax yourself, okay? Okay. I do mean we are grateful to you, yeah? So, you being the only diver in the environment where decisions were to be made, questions were posed and so. Now, I want to be clear. The first time you learned that there may have been live men in that pipe, remind us as what time were you given that information?
And so that'll be between after 10 midnight.
After 10 to midnight.
Yes.
Did you consider for a moment that there might have been a need for rescuing persons when you left Heritage to come to PARIA?
Well, I would say yes, because an incident would have occurred.
Yes. But when you got there, no one who greeted you informed you, first of all, as we've heard that you told us very frontally, that Christopher Budram had exited the pipe before 6 o'clock that evening, correct?
Yes.
Had you been given the information upon your arrival, well, did you consider that to be critically important information to help you give advice?
Well, to be honest, I wasn't there in the capacity to give advice, so the fact that it wasn't forthcoming
Yes.
initially, because as I would have explained earlier, I enter into an active emergency management system, so LMCS should have had their emergency response plan effected.
We get all of that.
And, yeah.
We got all that. Are we grateful, right?
Yes.
But you as a human being first,
Yes.
knowing what you do today as you sit here, would you not now reflecting upon it, consider that bit of information to have been critical
Yes.
to be shared among the team of resources assembled, like the Avengers?
Yes.
Yes. Had you known that Christopher Budram had exited alive from the pipe at around that time, would you have acted differently? In other words, your decision-making process, whether they ask you to or not, would you not have volunteered some suggestion, listen, I'm a diver, these are the things we can or cannot do?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, it shocked me, and I'm going to ask the question again because I want to give you an opportunity to reflect whether your answer is correct. When was the first time you learned that there would have been live men in that pipe?
Between 10 and midnight.
Do you, sitting as you are today, find it shocking that that information wasn't given to you upon your arrival? I'm not blaming you, right? You only garbage in, garbage out, as we say.
No,
right?
well, again, to be fair, I can't say that information was available at that time. That was the impression I got.
The impression you got. What was the impression you got? Gentlemen.
No, in terms of life. Proof of life.
Proof of life. So you got no impression when you arrived that there was even a need for proof of life within the pipe or the surroundings. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes. In fact, wasn't it more an environment of death and disaster? Honestly.
An incident.
Yes. Was there any anxiety that you would have observed from anyone from PARIA, Piper, whomever? Gentlemen. Yes. Yeah. To endeavor any rescue into the pipe? Even that you were not told about men being alive. Did you? I mean, you're there, you're observing, and your reputation precedes you, right? In terms, you're a great, you observe and you're very sharp. Did you observe any anxiety or even a discussion for a rescue into the pipe?
No, I would say yes.
Good. Rescue what? The tanks?
No, I would say yes in terms of they were feverishly working to gather information and resources.
To what end? That's the point.
Yeah, I can't say.
Right. You didn't know. But the first time you were they made an inquiry of you was to retrieve or remove a blockage?
Yes.
And as the chairman put it, to retrieve a tank. Yes?
Yes.
Up to that time, nobody is saying men had been alive, one came out alive, and at the time that you may have been present, they may still have been alive. Nobody hinted that to you?
No. Well, at that time, which would be the approximately 12:15, they were trying to ascertain.
Ascertain what?
Information in terms of from inside the pipeline.
About the tanks?
Well, I would not say the tanks because...
When? Because you remember you just told us,
Yeah.
and repeat, what was the time you first learned that men had been alive at the time you were there before? When? Not after 12?
No, that's before I said. So between 10 and midnight, so between 12 and that conversation.
Yes.
Right. The request to remove the tanks was for the camera to go further into the...
Excellent, excellent. And were you even informed as to the purpose the camera is going in? Was it for the furtherance of exercising a rescue of human beings?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, I would assume that.
No, I didn't ask you about assume.
Yeah.
What were you told?
No, I wasn't. That's it. I wasn't told to say.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were kept out of that information loop, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And you were there to grant whatever assistance possible. You are a trained diver. You are aware that divers have found themselves in difficulties within a confine of a pipe before. Not personally, you know, but you're a well-read man, and in part of your training, you know that that is part of the dangers of a diver going into water in a pipe-ridden area, isn't it?
Well, I can't say so.
Why can't you say so?
It's not a common practice.
Not common. I ask you about common.
Yeah, and it's.
But is it out of the realm of the possibility that divers in a pipeline environment could find themselves in problems within a pipeline?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now, you're the first one to tell these noble gentlemen of the PARIA that there may have been a Delta P situation. Is that accurate?
I can't say.
Okay. But you are the one who told them about it. You told them.
Yes, so
yes.
In my compass, I can say yes.
Right. You are at Heritage. You're in the industry for many years. Isn't it by definition pumping? Isn't it the use of Delta P, pressure differentials, to move oil, to move water? Isn't that the business of pumping?
Yes.
Thank you. So it'll be stunning that if anybody would suggest that a Delta P situation would not have been a credible risk for men who are diving within a chamber with a pipe. Wouldn't that be stunning to you? That a Delta P was not a live and a clear and present danger.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, you know Mr. Piper for many, many years, isn't it?
No.
When did you first know Mr. Piper?
At 9:30.
First time you meet him?
Yes.
Right. But he was the commander of the incident management team.
Yes.
He was the boss, as far as you were aware.
Yes.
Yes. You appreciate divers, first of all, are not like normal land-loving people, right? They take risks daily into going into an unnatural environment, meaning that you can't breathe underwater unless you have devices. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And therefore, you are trained, first of all, differently from the average land-bound human being, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. You appreciate that you are prepared in that, would I call it a hostile environment underwater? Would you consider it to be a hostile environment? With the dangers of crocodiles, sharks, currents.
I'm not sure where you swim.
Close to where Mr. Peterson is. So, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there are dangers there inherently, correct?
Yes.
And therefore, you are prepared to meet in that hostile environment challenges that may be not readily foreseeable, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, going into a pipe that may have oil, may have water, and not the largest of pipes, a 30-inch diameter, is something that is doable, isn't it?
I would say no.
No?
No.
You have never gone into a confined space in all your years as part of your practice or training?
Not a 30-inch pipeline.
Okay. What's the largest you went into? Or the smallest, sorry?
No, again, I never went into a pipeline.
There you go. But you do know that it is not just possible, but it happens from time to time.
With careful consideration.
And proper equipment.
And proper.
Yes. At the time you were at the scene, you observed equipment, diving equipment, to be clear.
No,
Did you?
No, I was also the only equipment I would be aware of would be Mitchell's and OTSL.
Right. What time did you first go to the scene of the incident?
Bird 6 would have been maybe around, I think could be around 1.
1 o'clock, 1 a.m.
On Saturday, yeah.
Yeah. Anything prevented you from going before? Before 1?
I would say yes, because of, again, I entered into an active system, so
Yeah.
I wasn't free to do what I wanted.
No, of course, of course.
Yeah,
You basically are pawn where
So no, yeah.
wherever they ask you to go, you
Request,
go.
yes.
Whatever they ask you to do, you will do. And that's why we're grateful to you.
Yeah.
But having gone there this time, 1 o'clock in the morning, you saw diving equipment.
No. Well, the diving equipment, again, that I would have seen would have been on the Gulfstream Eagle.
Right. So let's get clear now. To go into a confined space, you certainly will need oxygen supply, correct?
Air.
Tell all of us here, what is the technology that is available and was available in Trinidad and Tobago on the 25th of February 2021 to supply oxygen to a diver, apart from tanks?
No, air. Right, so air. No, it's
Yeah.
an oxygen, right? So air.
Sorry, because you
Yeah.
can't give 100%, of
Yeah.
course. Yes, I appreciate that.
Right, the equipment that's available to... Sorry,
In Trinidad and Tobago,
Yeah.
or from your knowledge, what would be used to supply air to a diver not using tanks underwater?
Compressors.
Right? Compressors
Yeah.
and a hose.
Yeah. Umbilicals.
Yeah?
Umbilicals.
Umbilicals.
Yes.
And you, of course, knew that that was readily available that night.
Yes.
Yeah. And as a trained diver, there is a language of distress. And I don't know the term, so you'll help me. When a diver is in trouble and he's being tendered, how does he respond to let those who are tendering know that he has a problem?
No, you have communication, you have line pulse signals. You
Sorry?
have communication and line pulse signals.
Communication meaning electronic communication, correct?
Yes, yes, audio.
And that part of the umbilical.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And also the oldest of technologies, our old rope.
Yes,
Right?
You could signal on your umbilical.
Yeah, you could signal on the umbilical,
Yes.
but also on a rope. Tell us if you're in problem. Show us now, because we want to learn, right? What if you are in severe danger and you need assistance using the rope? Forget the umbilical and the technology of the electronics. Tell us the oldest, simplest form of communicating that you have a problem and you require assistance.
Yeah, line pulse signals.
Show us.
Is that you talk on a line, and there's a specific number of pulls.
How
and
many pulls?
That varies from department, from contractors.
Okay. But you know when you get
So
in pull.
they're established, yeah.
Right.
So each pull have different.
And what is the response when you get that pull being the tenderer?
No, the tender will acknowledge the pull signals.
Right?
By
And then what?
Yeah.
And then what?
Retrieve the diver.
Huh?
Attempt to retrieve the diver
And how is that done?
by pulling on the...
Simple old technology. Pull the rope, right? If they're in difficulty and they can't
Yes.
help themselves.
But it's dependent on the circumstance.
Of course we
Yes.
know. But if after the 4 pulls you lose communication, as an example, what's the natural thing you do?
Yeah, recover.
No, don't yeah. Tell us for the record. Tell us. Not a trick question, brother.
Yeah.
Tell us. Simple things. What do you do?
No, recover.
What does that mean?
No, you pull the...
You pull them out,
Yeah.
correct? So that if a diver wished to go into this dangerous environment, and I say that openly, of a 30-inch pipe, right, with some level of blockage, a tank, and some other things, maybe chains and pulleys or whatever, and he finds himself in difficulty, could he not be easily retrieved by the old pull method?
Not in this circumstance.
Why not in this circumstance?
Because of the diameter of the pipeline, you also will be working around a bend.
Yes,
Now, there are certain requirements to certain activities,
yes.
right? The fact that he'll be working around a bend, he will require in-water tender.
A what?
In-water tender.
Right.
So that will be a person at the bend.
Beautiful.
Because the fact that you have that turn, that
Yes.
shoot turn,
It may interfere with the,
make
with
it
the
that
communication.
signal. You might not feel the signal, one,
Uh-huh.
and two, in trying to retrieve the diver,
Right.
you may not be able to pull him out of the pipe.
I appreciate that, but did you sitting as you are today, what's the date today? 6th of January, important day in the United States. Yeah, the 6th of January, 2023, you are aware that Michael Kurban actually went in beyond the bend, isn't it?
I would have heard that.
Yes. So it was possible. And he came back out alive and well. Well, shouldn't say well because he lost his dad. But he came back out alive, correct? You know that?
I would have heard that.
Yes. So it was not impossible. You agree?
I can't say.
We're doing well, you know.
Yeah.
I want you to say.
No, I can't say. I'll be honest, I can't say because
No.
I would have heard, so I can't say exactly what was done. So I
Right.
would have heard.
Right. Okay. But you had no reason to doubt that. Whether you have reason or not, fact is, this is the evidence.
Yes.
Okay? So you know now,
Okay.
assuming that to be correct, that it was possible. Yes?
Okay.
Yeah. Now, let's go a little further. A diver who has the umbilical, meaning you have air supply, electronic communication, and out of an abundance of caution, a secondary umbilical called a whole rope, right? And that diver goes in and encounters oil, as an example, and for whatever reason believes that, you know, it's too hazardous to move forward. What would you as a diver, what would you do?
Retreat.
Retreat, yeah? Are you aware, at any time that whilst you were there, within the confines of the likelihood of life, and before it should be extinguished, I think you told us, is it 5 hours, he says? 5 hours, yeah? That any effort was made by any of the resources provided by PARIA, by Heritage, or any of the dive companies to enter to effort a rescue. Huh?
No. Repeat the question, sorry.
Of course. Yeah. I know it kind of long, but it's simple when you hear it again. Right? Whilst you were there, did you become aware of any effort by anybody provided by the resources of PARIA or Heritage to enter that pipe to try to rescue human life?
No.
No. I understand there's a brotherhood within the diving community, correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. You don't have to know somebody, but once you know it's a brother diver, there's a heightened anxiety to ensure their safety and well-being, isn't it?
Yes.
The old golden rule, from which that comes, do unto others as they have them do unto you, correct?
Yes.
You understand that? That is one of the most important rules for life, for children to grow up with, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think, looking back on all you know today, that men were alive in that pipe up till 6? One came out alive and indicated that there were others alive there. First of all, that it is fair to those who perished that that information not be shared with all those who could have helped.
Yes.
Do you think it was fair to the divers who were alive that no effort was made when we had the technology, the old rope, the umbilical, and persons who were willing to go in, that such persons were prevented from making an effort to save their lives? Do you think that's fair?
I can't say.
No, well, listen, let me help you. Maybe you don't know.
Yeah.
There was a professional diver who knew all the risks. He came and he gave evidence and was willing, knowing all that he did, to go into rescue. Do you know that?
No.
No? Nobody tell you that even. Isn't it? Because the time you were there until you found out after the expiration or the extinguishment of life, you didn't know that there were live persons to be saved, isn't it?
No.
No. And as a brother in the diving fraternity, do you think that is right? That they should be left to die with no effort made to rescue them?
I can't say that. I wouldn't say that's a fair statement.
I am being unfair in the statement?
Sorry. No.
I'm not understanding you. What is unfair about that?
No, you're saying to leave them to die.
Yes, they were left to die.
No, sorry.
Because no rescue was efforted. They made no effort to rescue them.
Can you just pause for a minute, because I'm struggling to hear with the noise going on outside.
Yeah.
Just pause.
Of course. It is alarming evidence also.
Never a lost opportunity, eh, Mr. Ramadan? Yes, all right.
I missed you, sir. Yes. So, what was that question? Yeah. Tell me.
While you're taking a break, can I ask you a question? From what you were saying to Mr. Ramadan about the possibility of a rescue, do I understand you to say, in your estimation, whilst it might have been possible, it was necessary for someone to go into the pipe to the bend, and if he was going to go beyond the bend, to have another diver at the bend?
Yes.
So, in effect, you're putting two divers in the pipe.
Yes.
Would that have anything to do with, partly because of the existence of the bend, obviously, and the tighter the bend, if it's a right angle as opposed to a much softer type of bend, it makes it more imperative, I imagine.
Yes. So recommended practice.
Yes.
It's a dive around a bend. It's a penetration dive.
Right.
The fact that that diver is going to make that bend, you lose the opportunity to recover or retrieve in the event of an emergency. One.
Yes.
Two, if he requires signaling, that bend would restrict the ability to even use the line pulse signals.
So when you were raising these questions, when you were finally being asked to provide your input in relation to the retrieval of a tank, when you were raising a number of questions yourself within those who were asking you, this would have been one of the considerations that you would have had in mind.
Yes.
As to how you might ameliorate those risks.
Yes.
Mitigate them. Yeah. So, assuming for a moment Mr. Ramadan's suggestion that there were willing divers prepared to undertake that task, one to go down to the bend and then beyond, and one at the bend, would that facilitate, do you think, a diver being able to go in head first, the front one, and the one at the bend feet first, so as to ensure the extraction of the diver who went in head first could come out at the bend if there was a problem? Because otherwise, I anticipate a 30-inch pipe. If you're just pulling someone out, if there's some distress, or you're not getting any response, and you have to just pull them out, their legs could get in the way at the bend, couldn't it?
Right. So there will also be the challenge of inserting the diver head first.
Sorry?
Inserting a diver head first.
Yes.
There's a risk associated with that also.
Exactly, yes. But by the same token, putting him in feet first wouldn't particularly assist in trying to rescue the very divers you're trying to get.
Exactly.
So one way of meeting the difficulty of deciding whether they should go in head first or foot first would be to have one go in head first, and the second man at the bend feet first. Would that ameliorate the risk?
No.
Still a risk?
Yeah, because
Well,
again, the fact of introducing somebody head first, right now, again, initially we'd have established that the riser is approximately 10 feet above the deck.
Above the deck?
Yes.
So you were told at midnight, were you?
Yes.
Or thereabouts, that the riser is now 10 feet above the deck on the berth.
Right. So when we went to the berth, the opening of the habitat, so the riser is within the habitat. So you'd have to lower a diver from 10 feet above the deck.
Sorry,
This is an air
I
gap.
just need to understand what you're saying, because are you saying that the diver couldn't enter the pipe inside the habitat?
No.
Well, how did the diver come out?
At this time. No, that's in, so there are different times.
Right, so by now...
Right, so the time that I'm aware of, what was available would be a riser above surface.
Right, you mean the habitat had been removed?
No, the habitat is still there.
Still there?
And the riser is within the habitat. And the habitat ends at approximately 10 feet, 8 to 10 feet, which I was told, above the deck.
Right.
So you are going to introduce a diver in an airspace, so you're going to suspend the diver.
Right.
Right,
yes.
so the diver could pass out.
So,
It's
so
impractical.
that I understand it, and someone perhaps remind me when the riser was added. About 10 p.m. that night, thank you.
Yeah.
So by the time you were being consulted on this, they'd already added this riser.
Yes.
Were you aware of the fact that up until about 10 o'clock, you could have accessed the pipe by going up into the habitat and into the pipe a little lower than the level, but I mean it was within the habitat because Mr. Boudram came out that way.
Yeah.
It's only by about 10 o'clock, I'm reminded, that about 10 o'clock this new riser had been fitted to make it a lot longer so that it came above the surface of the sea. So and I get what you're saying now, so effectively you're now suspending a diver all the way down the pipe before he even hits any fluid.
Right, so you have 10 feet approximately, then you have from the deck to the sea surface, which may be what we'd have observed could be about 5 feet or more.
Right.
Then you may not have fluid until below where the riser was reattached, the flange, which is another 15 feet.
So it's a long way.
So you're looking at suspending a diver head first, approximately 30 feet.
Yes, a pretty unenviable position.
Yeah. So
actually adding the riser made it more difficult, not less difficult, to go in headfirst, certainly.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, it would be much more efficacious, but much more practical to have someone going in headfirst if he's going to try and rescue someone. Because feet first, it's very difficult to do anything once you hit somebody.
Yeah.
But in order to mitigate the going in headfirst, you'd need someone as a bare minimum at that bend.
head first or foot first. So despite which direction you enter the tube, like on the pipeline, you need a tender, you need an in-water tender.
For the moment, let's ignore the fitting of this additional riser. Okay?
Yeah.
Imagine we're just inside the habitat, so that you can.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say hop into, but you know what I mean. Climb into the pipe relatively easily, unlike being suspended by a chain through maybe 30 feet of pipe.
Yes.
Right. I mean, there's a difference, obviously. But if I'd said to you at the time, before this riser's put on, what we're planning to do is to put one diver in head first within the habitat, and the second diver in feet first. First diver goes in the horizontal, the second diver stays at the bend. Would that meet some of the concerns that you might have?
No, again, so head first will still be a challenge.
Still a challenge, right?
Yeah,
so you would say don't go in head first.
No.
Go in feet first.
Yes.
Whatever you're going to do, do feet first. All right. So working on that premise, and I'm just using your skills now in the same way that perhaps the IMT might have done. But let's just consider it for a moment. If you went, I'm testing you as a diving expert. You're saying, okay, no, you can't go in feet first. You can't go in head first. You've got to go in feet first. So feet first. One diver goes in feet first with the appropriate equipment, which I understand to be umbilical cord, proper helmet of some kind, communications, both electronic and the old style, as Mr. Ramadal's been pulling a bit of rope. Yes, both of those. Going in feet first, lights, that sort of thing, yes?
Yes.
So he's the first diver. The second diver would be exactly the same.
Yes.
He stays at the bend. You could presumably even see him down there, 30 feet down. Well, the water was clear, we're told.
No, but I think the depth was approximately 50 to 60 feet.
It is, yes, but there wasn't that much water in it.
Oh, no, but the bend that we are referring to is the tube turn. So this is at the seabed.
Right.
And this may even be below the mud line.
All right. Well, either way, he'd have a torch and he'd see the light, presumably.
Not necessarily.
Would you know?
No.
All right. Well, I only ask because occasionally I've done a bit, once or twice, been diving myself and used a torch, and it does shine quite a long way, but never mind. Be that as it may, both divers are now in. They've both got communications, both old style and new style, all right?
Yeah, and we're referring to end-to-end with at the habitat?
Yes. Entering through the habitat.
Right, so you'll need another tender.
Oh, you need people in the habitat.
Another in-water, no. you need another in-water tender, but that's another bend.
No, it's not.
So it's more complex.
It's straight down.
Oh, no. So,
In the habitat, the pipe is open like this.
Yeah.
It goes straight down.
but to enter the habitat, you'll have to pass on the outside of the habitat, enter between the habitat and the riser, and then go back down.
You mean the umbilical cord?
Yeah.
Right.
So it'll actually have
They
more
have to-
turns
they
now.
have to go two turns, yes. Yeah, to
So it'll
back
actually
up
have
onto the
1,
surface.
2, 3, yeah.
Yeah.
So you'll actually have a bend at the bottom of the habitat, another bend at the flange, and then another bend at the tube tip.
Like an S-bend, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you'd have
So
to have
it's-
men stationed
Yeah.
there, making sure that
And these men would be divers.
well, they'd
fully
one would have to
fully
be in the
equipment.
water all the time.
Yeah.
One would be in the habitat. Yeah. So that's the kind of
So
plan
these are
that
the
you would be
complexities.
looking at.
Yes.
Right. So what you're identifying to me
Yes.
is what you're saying to me is, look, this is all possible, but this is what you need.
Yes.
You need a man in the water outside the habitat. You need a man inside the habitat to ensure the cable's going in. You need another man at the bend.
Yep.
You need one in the pipe to go along to get effective rescue. They've got to go feet first. All of these things are things that you're identifying for us as a possible way in which you might
Considerations.
rescue these men. So what you're saying is that it's not impossible to do, but it is difficult to do.
Yes.
And you need the appropriate number of divers or personnel who can be relied upon
Yes.
to carry out that task, and a willingness to do so.
Yes. And I notice we keep using the word divers, right? But it's a team, right? And the supervisor of the dive is the person who will be responsible for. So it's not a matter of willingness of a diver. It's a matter of the person responsible for the dive,
Yeah.
ultimately.
So he has to take the responsibility.
Yes.
But
So you have to
when
have
I say
some-
willingness, I mean no one would order someone to go into the pipe.
Yes.
It would have to be voluntary.
Yes.
That's what I mean by willingness, if you follow
Yeah.
what I mean.
Okay.
I don't anticipate anybody would seek to force another to go into the pipe in these circumstances. You'd have to have somebody say, I am prepared to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, a supervisor who's prepared to take,
To take
the
the
risk
risk.
of letting him do it.
Yes. Yes.
The responsibility. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, well, that's very helpful. That conversation that we've just had about the possibilities or the ways it might be affected was never conducted with you, was it?
No.
Nobody at the IMT or even outside the IMT discussed with you those possibilities or those potential ways in which it might have been achieved?
No.
No. Do you know a Mr. Beddoe?
Not personally.
You know of him?
Yes, I know his name.
Do you know him to be an experienced diver?
Again, I've heard his name, but I've never
All
encountered
right, well, I
him.
can't ask him. All right, thank you very much. Well, I'm sorry for that interruption, Mr. Ramadar. I take it you've managed to regain your thoughts as to what the question was.
I may have lost some, but I'm most grateful, my Lord. Chairman, thank you very much.
Mr. Rabat,
Sorry.
just excuse, I just wanted to take off from where the chairman went, listening to the timeline. They said the contractor divers got there at about 8:40, call it 9 o'clock, 8:40, 9 o'clock, and they were standing by whether it was an instruction or not. So
Yes.
where I'm going with it is coming out of the whole room is the site visit.
Yes.
So as to your awareness, because you mentioned the site visit took place after the riser was installed or when the contractors arrived, they did conduct a site visit, and what did that site visit bring back, or what was reported from the site
Well,
visit?
I'll say no. I'm unaware of what OTSL would have been at Bird 6. I am unaware if any personnel from OTSL crew went and viewed the chamber.
Yeah, so it was just arrive and stand by.
Arrive and
then
stand by.
probably-
Yes, the
Okay.
only official site visit that was conducted would have been approximately one.
One, so
Yes.
that's after the riser was installed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, Mr. Ramadar, thank you.
Thank you very much. Very helpful to me, the questions from both Chairman and Commissioner. Now, of course, we appreciate that this was no bed of roses environment, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have perfect circumstances. You agree with that?
Yes.
You're aware that there are difficult rescues done throughout the world, and one of the most famous now, even on Netflix, is the rescue of many persons from the Thai caves. You know about that?
Yes.
Where divers were used, correct?
Yes.
And in such claustrophobic environment that some of the persons rescued had to be sedated in that environment to bring them out, isn't it? You know that?
Yes.
Yeah, good. So appreciating, no bed of roses, things are not going to be easy, as you've already answered to us. A rescue was possible, correct? Difficult,
Yes, difficult.
but possible, correct?
Yes.
And you've given us, and I'll be grateful for your efforts. So you required a longer umbilical to make all the turns, correct?
Yes.
You know an umbilical could be added to?
Not while online. Yeah, but
Well,
again,
yeah.
and again the length.
Yeah.
So
Did you know how much length of umbilical was available that night?
no.
I want to tell you now, and I could be proven wrong, but at least 1,000 feet of umbilical. You're in no position, of course, to deny that. No? You know the length of rope that was available that night?
No. No.
Several thousand feet of rope. You had several set of resources coming in. You knew full well that there were several divers available and several teams. Thank you for that. Several teams. Correct?
Yes.
Are you aware, as you are sitting here today, whether any of the other dive teams knew that persons were alive in that line before 12 or 12:50 a.m.?
I can't say.
You can't say. And as the chairman so poignantly referenced earlier, there's a fundamental difference in going in to save a whole air tank to saving a human life, a brother. Correct?
Yes.
And you have to be a little bit crazy to go and risk your life and go through all that with several thirds of the umbilicals to go and pull out a whole tank. You agree with that?
Yes.
But it's not crazy to go in with all of those complications to save a human life, isn't it? Huh?
Yes.
If it were to happen to you, what would you expect? That they will do all things that were possible to save your life? I don't mean to get personal, but it's important because we're dealing with human judgment here.
Oh well. Seeing that to make it personal,
Yeah.
honestly, no.
Know what?
I would not expect it.
Because of the people you deal with.
No. No, I'm at peace.
You don't expect, if you are in a position where you will die within that time frame.
Just a minute, you've asked him and you've got your answer.
Yeah, and I wanted this.
No.
No,
sir. So I can explain.
No, wait, we jump to
I'm at
that.
peace.
I just want to be clear, I got your answer. You being stuck in a pipe,
Yes.
right? Knowing all that you do, that in a period of time you will die. You wouldn't want every possible opportunity be taken to save your own life?
Not at the risk of other lives.
You still working with Heritage? Huh?
As I am at Heritage, yes.
Yes, of course. And PARIA is a sister company, part and parcel of the same management, isn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So you would prefer that to die rather than a risk, not that there's certainty of death of the rescuer. Right? There's no certainty of death of the rescuer. Remember you told us a rescuer, if he's in problem, he could be pulled back out? You appreciate that? Yeah?
Yes.
And you are willing to die so that this fella wouldn't get his foot wet with oil?
Sir,
And what? Be honest here now.
no, sir, I am being honest.
Oh, well, wow.
So what I'm saying,
Uh-huh.
I would not want anybody to put their lives at risk. I'm
Yeah.
at peace. So if I'm in that situation, I would not expect anyone or want anyone to risk their lives to save my own. I'm at peace.
You're,
If,
you're
if the shoe is on the other foot, I
At
would
peace,
enter.
at
Yes,
peace.
I will enter. I will make the attempt as an individual because I'm accountable for my life.
There you go.
So it's a
There you
decision
go.
that I will make for me,
Thank you.
but I would not make a decision for someone else.
Nobody give you that
Yeah.
godlike authority, you
Yeah.
know. As the chairman rightly put it, nobody could instruct anybody to come and save you. What's your name? Mr. Seal sticking a pipe.
Yeah.
Go go down there, risk your life and go and get him. Nobody could do that. But you, Mr. Seals, knowing that it's possible, that, and you know the technology, you have the assets, you have the equipment, you have the capacity and the capability and the willingness. Somebody say, I want to go and save my lovely friend, Mr. Seals. You will say, don't come, I'm going to die, I'm willing to die?
No, I won't. I can't.
Huh?
I'm stuck in the pipe.
Of course. So you think, Mr. Kurban, that's exactly the point. In your mind, being stuck in the pipe and in a mindset, right? Being stuck in the pipe.
Yes.
When you say stuck, you mean physically they couldn't move? Huh? Did you understand that? That they were immobilized?
Okay, no.
No. So they were not really stuck, but they were contained within the pipe. You agree with that?
Yes.
And all they required was for somebody to come and get them. Isn't it? Huh?
Okay.
Not okay? We're talking life and death here. 4 men died. With children. Brothers and sisters.
All right.
No, there's I want another issue here.
Yes.
Because you, sir, are a family man, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. You would want your family to endure your death.
I'm going to stop
I
this,
beg your
Mr.
pardon. I
Rahman.
will stop. I will stop. I am well contained, Mr. Peterson. Yes, I am counsel for human beings. Now, sir, appreciating as you have already told us that this thing was possible, right, as a diver, as the chairman so well and clearly put, time was of the ultimate essence, not just of the essence. You agree with that?
Yes.
Air running out, correct?
Yes.
Now, to be fair to you, you didn't know that there were live men in there until after 12. Very likely, by which time, from your calculations, they would have perished by then, correct? Huh?
Unlikely.
Huh?
Yeah, the survival would have been unlikely.
Unlikely.
Yes.
When you got to PARIA, isn't that the essence you got that, listen, them fellas gone already?
No.
Did you even know how many persons were involved in this incident?
No.
You weren't interested to find out if it was 1 or 10?
Yeah.
Right. So did you make an inquiry? Because you are coming there to not just observe like a kunumunu, but to listen and to advise if you're possible, right? Did you not inquire how many persons were involved in this incident that you knew right away was a Delta P?
No, I did not get a number.
Huh?
No.
Having not been given it, did you make any inquiry as a normal Trinidadian? Forget you're a diver working for Heritage. You weren't interested?
Yes.
I'm only hearing the buttering about we going to 8 o'clock. You will not be going to 8 o'clock because they go dead according to you by 8 o'clock. Did you make any inquiry? And the answer is no. As to how many? Come on, man, we don't want to wait till 8 o'clock.
Yeah, no.
No. Sir, you know the word courage?
Yes.
What is courage?
Bravery. Willing to take risk.
Knowing what you do, knowing that there are dangers, you're still willing to do it.
Yes.
And certainly for a worthwhile effort, correct?
Yes.
There are people who courageously do stupidness. You agree with that?
Yes.
And there are those who have courage to save lives.
Yes.
Like every policeman every day put their lives on the line for us. You appreciate that?
Yes.
Every fireman, yes?
Yes.
Every EMT, ambulance driver and so. All the first responders, the doctors, the nurses, they put their lives on the line for us every day. Correct?
Yes.
You appreciate, now sitting as you are today, 6th of January 2023, men in a pipe with certainly limited air, and in your mind now, reflecting 5 hours until they perish, extinguish lives, that not making any effort to rescue them, when in fact they not being rescued during that period, will lead to what?
That.
Huh? Lead to?
That.
Yes. Not a quiz that you don't know. Yes. Certain death, isn't it?
Yes.
And a decision, not you, once again, not your decision, Because you were kept out of important information, and had you known these other things, your information would have helped you to say, hey, fellas, we have to go and save these men, isn't it? As difficult as it is.
Yes.
And not doing it led to certain death. Now that you know this, correct? You want to be part of that stain?
No.
No, of course not. So, Faisal Kurban, you knew, or you do know today, that Christopher Boudram had promised the men that he's coming back to get them away, sending help, right? You know that? Yeah?
I've heard, yeah.
You appreciate that this was a brother diver rescuing himself and making a promise that could not have been kept. You appreciate that?
Yes.
And through no fault of his own, it couldn't have been kept. You appreciate that?
Yes.
You know that was communicated to the authorities when he came out? That men were right behind, go and get them, go and get them?
Yes.
And nobody tried to fulfill that man's promise? Huh?
Yes.
Yusuf Henry died. You know that now, right? The
Yes.
names.
Yes.
Kazim Ali died, Junior. You know that?
Yes.
Rishi Nagesar died. You know that?
Yes.
Of course. And you know, as you are today, that even before your arrival, Faisal Kurban's son Michael had gone into that pipe as far as he could go with the limited resource at that time. Wrongly bend. You know that today?
Yes, I've heard.
And that he came back out unharmed. Physically, I mean. Emotionally, that's another issue. Physically unharmed, correct?
Yes, I've heard.
Did you speak to each and every diver there that night as to their willingness, capacity, ability
No.
to go in? No? Oh, by the way, maybe you know or you don't know. These companies that were called out, do you know whether they were ever paid for their services that night? You'll find how relevant that is.
I believe so, yes.
Thank you. You know the best things in life, as they say, free. Huh?
Yes.
Do you know that Conan volunteered? He didn't think about money. Do you know that?
No.
But they're all waiting to retain companies to come, isn't it? Isn't it? You only deal with companies. Do you know how much money was spent for all these resources that led or resulted ultimately in the death of these 4 men?
No.
Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Pegas.
I have no questions to this witness. Thank you very much.
Can I ask you, Ms. Persaud Maharaj, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
No questions. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morning, Mr. Seals.
Good morning.
The exercise you went through with the chairman a few minutes ago with respect to options for diving.
Yes.
The divers you placed at the first turn, the second turn, down at the bend. That's 1, 2, 3. I think I counted 4 so far. If you were to send men after the bend along the horizontal, approximately how many feet along the horizontal before it becomes required or requirements to place another, what do you call them, underwater?
Well, it's a straight. So
in water, I think.
in water tender, no.
Yeah.
So along the horizontal, you will not need additional tenders.
Doesn't matter the length.
But the excursion, you'll have to take into consideration your bailout endurance, right? Because
The what?
bailout endurance.
What is that?
The dive cylinder on your back, again, it has a certain capacity
Right.
or available gas to the diver.
Right.
So in the event of an emergency, that is the air supply that he'll be required to use.
To retreat.
Yes.
So going in and
Yes.
use and retreat.
Yes, so that's a calculation. Also.
That's a calculation.
So
again.
it's not just a matter of joining umbilicals and traveling indefinitely,
Right.
right? These are considerations that you have to factor in.
And that calculation would be dependent on how long,
Because
how far along the horizontal they go.
You are traveling, yes.
Right. Those divers, well, that would probably take us up to about 5. Are those mere commercial divers or confined space divers?
No, commercial divers.
Right.
Commercial divers all having the relevant equipment.
Right. Not confined space requirement.
No.
You sure about that?
No, I would not say specialize in confined space entry.
You what?
I would not say specialize in, because this again is a penetration dive.
Right.
So it's even different.
Could you move your microphone
Oh.
just to your
Yeah.
left, and that way you'll,
Right,
when you
yeah.
turn, you'll be...
Right, so it's a penetration dive.
Right.
It's not just a confined space.
It's not just a confined space,
It's
and
a
it's not
penetration.
just, and not all commercial divers are penetration divers specialists.
So again, it's not really a specialty, it's a matter of planning.
Also, penetration is not an area specialty.
No, it's that's it. So all this is part of your dive plan,
Right.
and all the mitigations and controls you need to put in place to effect such a dive.
Right. If you were to work out that plan, did you, well, since this event, did you attempt to work out such a plan as a mock-up for this incident?
No, not formally. I would have thought of different things, but it was more of a personal effort,
There's more, yeah,
Yeah.
just out of interest because
Yeah.
you're a diver.
right? But it's very restrictive now.
Yeah.
The pipeline is 30 inches, right? So a diver would have approximately, an average person only has approximately 4 inches on either side of your shoulder,
Okay.
first to begin with. You are in a tube,
Yes.
right? So it's very difficult. You are in full gear.
Yes.
So in terms of to navigate, to move, to function within that space will be challenging.
Would be challenging. And to add to that challenge would be, first of all, the consideration that you're engaging with the learner chairman with respect to whether you're going feet first or head first.
Yes.
And you said that there were risks to going in head first. Could you assist us with what, in a nutshell, those risks would be?
No, basically to start with, if you're going to suspend a person in air for
Yes.
a period of 30 feet,
Yes.
approximately 30 feet before you reach water, the diver could actually pass out before
Before it gets to the water.
here,
Right.
right? You can also have flooding of your hat.
Have what?
Flooding.
Of the hat.
Yeah.
Wow. And when you get into the water head first, or into the pipe head
Head first,
first,
yes.
what risks or challenges, if any, that you envisage the diver would encounter?
No, well, again, there's still the possibility because we never know what caused the scenario to subside. Right, so there's still a potential of a secondary delta P.
There's still a
A
potential.
consideration. There's a consideration.
So, having evidence to eliminate the possibility of a second delta P is a crucial factor for any dive plan, wouldn't it be?
Yes.
Right. And since it's intended to be a rescue, how is it envisaged that, first of all, going in head first, that rescue would be effected?
No, again, head first to me is not an option.
Head first is not an
It's
option.
not an option. No.
Right. So the plausible step would be feet first.
Yes.
And could you assist us how you envisage feet first to be? In the 30-inch pipe, feet first, 4 inches on either side of the shoulder, with equipment, how is that to be effective?
It will be challenging.
Challenging is kind of uncertain.
Right. So you going down the vertical section. When you reach the horizontal, you navigate the tube turn. If you're
Yes.
able to, that might pose a little challenge with equipment on.
Yes.
Right. If you were to turn over, so you'll have to turn over on, let's use it with all fours.
You have to turn over in the 30-inch pipe.
On your belly. So you'll have to be on your belly now. When you reach the horizontal section.
So you're going down back, your back first. Your back,
right, so
on your back, and then you flip into your belly.
Right, so you'll be going down feet first. When you reach the horizontal section, you will need to be on your stomach to be able to travel along the pipeline. Right? Now you still would not be able to raise in the pipeline because, again, because of the diameter of the pipeline. Right? Any object or anything that you'll be meeting foot first.
Right.
Now again, we have to envisage that we are in a tube. Right, so it's not a 30-inch hatch and you spill out into a big space or a void.
It's a tube all the way. It's a tube all the way.
Within this tube.
Yeah.
So any activity or action you are doing is within this space.
Yes.
Or this tube.
Yes.
Right, so you will be meeting objects foot first.
Yes.
You may not know, or if you do know, based on some of the camera footage, the objects that you meet, you would have to try to crouch.
Yes, just now. That is, don't factor any camera footage yet.
Okay, you know nothing.
You're still going blind.
Right, so you're just going, whatever your foot encounter,
yes,
you would have to try to crouch within the same tube.
Yes.
To make contact with your hand to bring this object forward, if you can.
If you can.
Yeah.
But you're bringing the object forward and then putting it in the space that you will have to be retreat, the passage along which you will have to be.
Again, you cannot just leave it there. So you would have to remove items one by one. Whatever you put between you and the surface,
you know have to clear it.
It advisable to clear that before you proceed any further.
Right. So if you have multiple, I notice in a statement to speak of tanks and other articles, I think you said, you have to clear that first. But having gone down there and cleared that, then you're running out of diving time as a diver.
Yes.
So you know, the 4 or 5 divers you have using, 2 of them might have exhausted their time by then.
Yes.
So you're looking for 2 more divers again, at least to replace them going back down. And assuming that they get to the point where the first diver was before he was repelled, you're going further than that, and you don't know what you encounter beyond that either.
Yes.
You know. The evidence is that there were 4 tanks in the line. Did you know that?
No.
Right. And let us assume, because some of the course examination before was based on assumptions, let us assume clearing 4 tanks. That is, at least 4 divers have to come out and decompress, I think is the term.
No, well,
in
this activity, there'll be no decompression diving.
Well, not decompress, but we gather the time.
Yes.
Yeah. To clear 4 tanks, and then if 4 tanks are to be cleared before. So you see, all of this, we are speculating because of the uncertainty, right? Well, we're speculating because we don't have certainty on all these items.
Yes.
But what would assist in that scenario that you're now engaging with me on would be camera footage to give you some level of certainty.
Yes.
Right. Which would be what you will have to factor into to make a final determination as to whether you effect a dive.
Yes.
Right. Back out the camera footage again. Would you, as a dive supervisor, with all those variables we just went through there, send a man in blind?
No, as a dive supervisor, no.
Right. You have ever been in control of a facility where you have to authorize diving?
No.
Right. But you know the concept of you could attract. This is somewhat of a legal question, but basically a common sense one. You could attract criminal liability if you authorize and send persons to their death.
I'm not sure that that's a question you could answer.
I would withdraw it or rephrase it. I'll deal with it and address it soon. But you said that day you weren't part of any decision as to diving on the 25th.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll come around with another. You were taken by Mr. Ramada, I think, to the scenario of the cave rescue. I think he's speaking about the cave rescue, that the international incident with the students in the cave.
Yes.
Did you follow that incident?
No, I didn't.
So you're not aware that that rescue took days of planning and multiple countries and experts involved? You're not aware of that?
Yes, I'm aware of that. I didn't follow it in its entirety.
But at least you know that rescue
of it, yes.
took days of planning, and I think when I checked, I think it was 20 countries were involved, and they were lending experts to that effort.
Yes.
And the students had to be sedated to be brought out through the confined spaces. You're aware of that too?
Yes.
Right. That takes me to the point of, when we were going through our narrative a while ago with respect to the difficulties of that rescue on the 25th, did you factor in your, after you said you're doing a personal assessment, did you factor in that the likely response of a diver in the pipe when the rescuer encounters him to bring him out? What his state of anxiety may be, and whether that poses a difficulty?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And why, expand a bit, why you say it would pose a difficulty?
No, he's in survival mode now.
He's in survival mode, and that means, and I know you think it follows, but some of us don't know. Explain when you mean that he would be in survival mode.
He could be
What
erratic.
is that challenge with him being in survival mode?
Yeah, he could be erratic. He could be trying to do whatever is necessary for him to get out of the pipeline,
Yes.
which is,
Which is?
Yeah, you can't be attacked.
You can be attacked.
You can't try to take your gear.
He can try to take your air, because, understandably. And also, did you factor in when you were doing your assessment, your post-25th assessment, as to whether the person may have been injured due to the violent Delta P scenario?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I think Commissioner Wilson had asked you about that the person being drawn into the pipe under Delta P, they could be injured.
Yes.
And that will pose a further difficulty and as to embark upon a rescue.
Yes.
Yeah. Something like my colleague Prakash. Sorry. Right. I'm interested in...
Your sotto voce is quite loud.
I'm sorry.
I don't think it was intended to be sotto voce.
Mr. Seals, you were contacted, because I'm quite interested in a lot of what I heard this morning. You were contacted on the afternoon of
Just pause him for a moment. If you're going to be a little bit longer.
Yeah, I will be.
Why don't we take a break now?
Sure.
Because we haven't had a break. We started at 9:30,
Yes, sure.
So let's take a break now, and then you can take as long as you need. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to take a 15-minute break now, so we'll resume at 5 to 12, please.
Okay.
And then I'm told that the Prime Minister is giving a press conference at midday, and therefore our TV coverage is going to be cut off. That is not the reason why I'm suggesting we have the break now to resume at 12 o'clock. Because what will be available on YouTube and on the website, so people can follow your cross-examination on YouTube and on the website. Thank you very much. We'll break off now until just before 12 o'clock. Thank you.